Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kendra Jason. I'm a sociologist and workplace equity consultant, and I will bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. On this podcast, I challenge you to think about work. Why? Because in America, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work? And I mean all types of work: women's work, essential work, retirement, being your own boss, how to handle your boss, and so much more. Please subscribe and share the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. You can learn more about my consultancy that supports this podcast at work4changellc.com. Hello, and welcome to episode 42 of the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. Today, I have special guest and small business owner, Cindy Lumpkin, the LD coach. Welcome to the podcast, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Kendra. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. So I am going to read Cindy's bio really quickly because I want to get into this conversation. I was laughing with Cindy a moment ago. I said, your 6 lines of bio is just packed with life. So Cindy, also known as the LD coach, is a teacher turned school founder. She resigned from her post in a large urban school district in 2011 after having been a successful special education teacher, co-teacher, and administrator. As an administrator, Cindy led over 12 special education teachers and paraprofessionals. She left this position to pursue, number one, being a stay-at-home mom, and then eventually starting Triumph in Life, Inc., which is a nonprofit organization she started and then, or founded rather, and then started Triumph School. So excited about this. The mission of the school is to inspire and educate those with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. Now, you can, of course, find all of Cindy's contact information below. She runs a YouTube channel, which is self-titled, where she inspires and advocates and educates for teachers and those with learning differences. And you can connect with her on Facebook, the LD Coach on Instagram, and all of the things. All right. And so the first big question that I had when I read this, or the thing I was curious about, is you seem to be very successful as a school teacher and administrator. What encouraged you or motivated you to leave that stable profession and go into starting a nonprofit?
Wow. So, Kendra, one of my friends once told me that I was a forerunner. And as someone who is always working to sit in that person that I really know I am, I couldn't receive that. However, once this whole era of the great teacher resignation started to happen, I started to say, maybe she's a bit true. So I would say the same things that you hear from teachers now, why they are no longer, or they feel so compelled to really disconnect themselves from the system, is the same thing that I was going through back then. And I think one of the big differences too is because I am such a passionate person that does things as a result of passion. Now we all need money, right? So I had to work to get money, but money is always secondary to anything that I do. And everything that I engage in is because there's a layer of passion, and that passion can come from anywhere. For me, I am so connected to the field of special education because I am a person who has dyslexia, and I have not been able to, growing up, I didn't know that word. It was the hard knock life. I didn't have a mother who was educated or had money. Once again, it was just the divine intervention of God that I lived, or my little trailer was on the right side of the track. And I happened to have gone to the best school in the district. And so I received an excellent early education upon being identified as someone who had a learning difference. And that made all the difference to my life. Now, as my trajectory in life and education went on, I just felt a strong passion or just a prompting from God to join education or to become a special ed teacher, which was never on my radar. Okay. I am supposed to be a lawyer in this power suit, okay, in front of somebody's judge. But that was just changed because of, once again, me feeling that call, right? And so once I got into education, aside from all of the other things that, you know, teachers are going through that is just not right, I felt like I was working in the urban sector, as you said, and, you know, there's a lot of things that come with that. But it just wasn't cool with me that we were still getting ninth graders reading on a third grade level, and they were expected to do high school level work. And it just didn't make sense. So for me, I lost my taste for that, and I felt purposeless. So really, although I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but really, when that happened, it just became an open door for me to be able to give up my job.
Yes. I love the way you said that, because a lot of people would have said, with all those challenges before them, they felt helpless. But you said you felt purposeless. And that's a whole different motivation, a whole different thing that speaks to you, right? Because helplessness comes from, you know, a place of defeat in a way, or hopelessness. But purposeless puts that whole thing like, if I've lost my purpose, then I need to find it somewhere else, right? And so that's often, so then Triumph Life, right? And so Triumph Life is the umbrella, and then you have at least Triumph School under there. So what is the umbrella, and then what happens up under that umbrella?
Okay. So once again, you know, when you asked me to describe myself, a lot of times I would just say, I am just an educator, right? So basically, I also realized that, you know, I jump into this with just, I'm a risk taker, right? So I didn't know what was ahead. But when I started Triumph in Life, we started out just as a as a mentoring program. And I was the chief mentor. And my whole goal was to put these successful people who also identified with having learning differences in front of children who had learning differences. Because one of the things that I could take away from my own experience is that it caused a lot of shame, a lot of self-esteem issues, even confidence, you know. And although I projected, and maybe still do, lots of confidence, sometimes it's just showing up that way and not necessarily feeling that, you know. So for me, a big part of when I look back on that little 11 or 10-year-old girls, I was like, what would have made a difference? What would have made a difference was to see a woman like me or a man like me who claimed to have had the same issues, or maybe even still struggle with some of the same things, but yet they are leading very successful lives. They're being very productive. They're members of the community. They're giving back, right? And so I knew that our kids needed to see that, and kids from an urban population even more so, because a lot of them also have the issues with the just being from low income and not being exposed. And so we started out there, and then it was like, okay, I see all of these children who are dropping out of high school, who, when I see them, I feel like it's me. And with the right instruction, I know that you can do better. You know, I can't predict the future. I don't know if you're going to go on and get a doctorate and a master's and all of this, but I know we can get to a functional reading level, right? And so a door opened, and I just walked through it, and we started Triumph, and the rest is history.
It's beautiful. I know when I first, so let me just give the viewers, listeners, just a teeny tiny piece of background. So I've actually known Cindy for 20 years, right? Cindy and I had a very unique experience. We actually met on a study abroad experience to Ghana, West Africa. She was at one school, I was at another, and our schools combined to go on this trip. So we spent 5 weeks together. basically kind of thrown in the pits of a study abroad. And we had this amazing, life-changing experience together. And then, of course, see, this was back in 2002. This was for Facebook. This was, we might have had MySpace, but MySpace wasn't like interactive in a way that Facebook is. And so, we went our separate ways and we kind of kept up on social media. And then when Facebook and social media advertising really kind of took hold, we were able to keep in touch with each other through that. So I say all that to say that I remember first learning, if I recall right, because this is a lot of years, first learning about you as the LD coach, as far as a business, as an LD coach. And I thought it was like absolutely amazing. I was like, oh, I didn't even know this, right? But I loved your platform. I loved your purpose, and I loved like your marketing and advertising, I guess, everything that went around into that. Then turn around a few, I don't know, years later, and then it's like, you done built the whole school, right? I remember when you were going through accreditation. I remember you were going through enrollment, different transitions. And I just thought it was like absolutely amazing. And what I really loved about watching you from afar in that process is that I could tell how much you loved and invested in those children, right? In those students and in that process. And then I just thought it's such a, to your point, wonderful experience for them to see you and others like you, because let me just go back to 2002 again. When I met Cindy, we were both like in our senior years of college. And I just knew, I was like, oh my God, this woman is like a superstar. I have, you meet somebody, you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad our paths cross now, because as she shoots up into the atmosphere, I could say I knew that person. That was the impression that I had of Cindy. And on top of that, you are so, 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 so kind and humble, right? And so all of those qualities were just really, really great. And so, I know you laugh as you say, oh, I'm just an educator, but you have turned that educator, which is, so good in its own right, to something just so, all encompassing of who you are and bringing people in. And so I think, it's probably just a wonderful experience for those students, for the community members to see, someone who could have really gone in any direction and been successful. That's just what I think, right? But the fact that you chose this path that from the outside, it just seems like you're really, successful. And I say success comes in many different forms, right? Mm-hmm. But really successful, strong family life and all of those things. And so I just wanted to say that as well, that it's been a joy to watch you over time develop Triumph School. So what is school now? And then what do we have to look forward to?
Okay, so you went out just a little bit, Kendra.
Oh, yep. I said, what's going on with Triumph School now, and what do we have to look forward to?
Okay, so Triumph School is kind of going through a transition. Mm-hmm. My husband was hired as a senior pastor in a county over, right?
Yes.
So we just completed our last year in the county that we were in, and yes. So we're transitioning over to the county that we're in now. So we're in a bit of transition, and we're still just praying that God is going to open doors and that we're going to continue our work without an interruption. Yes. If there needs to be an interruption, that's okay. We are going to embrace it, and then we're going to get into the community, teach people about what it is that we do, and then from there pick up in the traditional sense as the school. Now, I've always done awareness. So that type of stuff will not stop. Right. But one of the lessons that I learned from, I wouldn't say learn, but one of the things that I came from COVID, right? I don't know how many people kind of look back and see how that really impacted us as a world and then us as individuals, right? And for me, I realized, one, just how short life is, right? Yes. And so much of my life I've devoted to this entity of the LD coach, which stands for learning disabilities or learning differences, as I like to call them. But then when I really sit down and thought about that, That is such one part of my life.
Yep.
This itsy bitsy part of my life, right? And
Yep.
I am the type of person who I like to do all the things.
Right.
Sometimes that just does not make for a good character, right? When you're trying to focus in. So one of the things that I said was that I was going to be more intentional about building not necessarily the LD brand, because the LD brand is Cindy Lumpkin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I want to transition and build the Cindy Lumpkin brand,
Right.
which is gonna encompass me.
Right.
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am this teacher turned founder, and I want to help people, not just people who have learning differences, but women, men. I want to do all the things. And what I realized, social media gives us that ability to reach people.
It does.
And you don't have to be big famous, right? We want to be that. I don't know if I want to be that. I would like to have the rich, famous money, but I don't have to be that anymore, right? And what I've learned is I'm so much about relationships. So those people who I find in my sphere, my goal now is to inspire them in their everyday life. So I am rebranding my website. We're going to start out just as a blog, and that blog it has 3 components: live, love, and learn. So under learn, we're going to talk about everything that sets my heart on fire about special education, living, just my life as a mom, my life as this business, owner, and then love, marriage, parenting, family. So that's the way that I found that I can be everything, right? And I'm going to be more strategic about using social media to build the business side, right? And my goal for Triumph in Life is to really get it to a point where I can really help to develop our board and find people who have such a love for it that it grows past Cindy. For these last 8 years, I've worn all of the hats, right? And it was awesome. But also in COVID, I popped up with a lovely new baby.
You did.
And so I don't know if I still have all of that time to invest so much of myself with a soon to be teenager. I have a 5-year-old who I'm keeping my eyes out for learning issues. And then I have this brand new baby boy, which has sent my house spiraling, because he's so different than the girls. So I really feel like I'm in a transitional period right now, but I am so excited. It's not a helpless feeling either. Once again, I don't know, maybe that's another thing just that's unique about me. I try to really capture the positives, right? And then pull those things out. And then as I plan and cast vision, that is what makes me excited,
Oh gosh, you said so much there. Let me see if I can remember all the things I want to respond to. I think your story speaks to so many, because I know it speaks to me with COVID. COVID, number one, made everybody sit down, right? Made you sit down and think. And one of the questions I did have about myself, and many people was like, what is my purpose in life? Why am I here? And it really helped you think about that, we only have one life to live. So what are we going to do with it? And I was just saying, I'm an educator myself, higher education, and I do well in that, and people see me do well in that, and people feel like I'm all encompassed in that. But for my life, I'm like, this is just my job. Like, this is a small piece of who I am, and I invest in it, and I'm passionate about it, and I love it. But I have so much more to offer, or I knew I had more to offer, but I wanted to expand my reach, just like you said. So I wanted to be, for my teachers for my students and for the community. So for the people who I'm interested in and researching, which everybody knows is older Black and brown workers, but also like small business owners, right? And so, that gave me the opportunity, COVID gave me the opportunity to game plan. Wow. Because I had time to sit down and think about who I am and what impact I wanted to make in the world beyond this sort of smaller thing, which was my full-time job, right? Another thing that I really appreciate that you are bringing to light for me is that I hope people get the message that it is okay to follow your passion. Like, especially for Black women, we have been, and other women, other mothers, we have been told to be caretakers first, to take care of everyone else first, and, to be risk adverse, right? To make things stable for everyone else so that everyone else can be successful. And then, you are the foundation, you are the home. And that's great in its own capacity, if that's what you want, but for many people, that's not all we want. And that's not all we're capable of, right? And so, I just want to reiterate your message that we can have purpose in many, many, many things. I remember Swanda Warren was on the podcast last year. Swanda Warren is the one who makes earrings, and she's also an educator in a sense, and the same thing. It's like, but I have more to give. I could be passionate, or you could be passionate about multiple things, and it's okay to pursue those passions. And it looks like a lot of different things. Another thing that I really love that you said is that you wear all these hats. My sister always called me like teen doing too much. Because, it always seems like I'm doing so much, but I'm actually enjoying all the things that I'm doing, and it's exciting. And the challenges are challenges, but they come with an excitement and a discovery, and just pushing you forward and discovering who you are and who you can be. So again, just going back to something you said way earlier about really stepping into the person that you can be or that you should be. And, honestly, sometimes our 9-to-5 or our domestic life keeps us away from that person we can fully be. Right. And so to your point, one message that I try to really put into women and other caretakers is that you can be a caretaker and a business owner. You can be a mother, and you can pursue your passion in whatever shape or size and timeline that it looks like. So I just didn't want those things that you said to get lost in. And you're such a beautiful speaker. Like I said, Cindy has a podcast. She does keynote speaking. If you want to contact her under any of the topics and so much more that we talked about, like I said, her information is below. So I have one final question for you, maybe final, and that would be, for someone who's listening or watching this podcast and they are interested in starting a nonprofit, their own business, or just simply pursuing a passion, what advice would you give them based on your experience?
Wow. Step out. Step out and don't worry about stepping out perfect.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to start a business. Like I am still learning. Same. But the thing that I did was I was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the LD coach, which is where, everything started, it was me telling my story. And my story in particular at that time was about me being this young girl who was diagnosed with a learning disability, who was clearly very bright, right? It's 1 in 5 of us. And my trajectory in life went so different from a lot of my classmates.
Right.
And, sometimes guilt comes with that, right? But once again, I said, you know what? People need to know. We need to talk about this. Other people need to see people like themselves, because we are never alone. Right. And once I shared that,
Yep.
I started being asked to speak. I've spoken at, colleges, at like a couple of school districts hired me to come in and speak to, like when they had their exceptional children's week and so forth like that. And everything that's just spun off from that, without me knowing, having an EIN or me registering with the state, all of that happened later. But if you're truly interested, just tell your story, understand what your why is. And I can't say this enough. Social media gives you tons and tons of free marketing. And I would say learn how to leverage that to get your message out.
Yeah. So I've heard other small business owners call it YouTube University. You don't know how to do something, go to YouTube University.
There you go. And may I add?
Yeah, sure.
One of the other things too that I've learned is that once you lived in your experiences, you can monetize your experience.
Oh yeah.
I never realized that there was a market to teach people how to open their school. I made a YouTube video, and the reason why I jumped into YouTube is because I really missed my colleagues. I really missed having, that group of educators are feeling like in the mix. So when I started YouTube, I started reconnecting with a lot more teachers, right? And one day I just shared my story. Hi, I'm this teacher who started this school. And people were like, wait a minute. A teacher can have, this small accredited school. And once that happened, now I just created a course, Kendra, and teaching people how to start their school. And so once again, I think everybody has what it takes to be able to start their business, right? And don't even worry about being an expert. All you need to know is enough to teach the person who's behind you, right? Everybody that's in front of you, they're not going to pay you anyway because you don't know enough of them. But everybody that's behind you, they want to get to where you are. And so those becomes your clients.
That is a beautiful message. Same, right? Because when I started Work for Change, it was not about starting your own business at all. It was about workplace equity, me being a consultant or my team being consultants. And then I went through this process of, I went through some workshops and starting your own business. I talked to mentors. And then I was like, you know what? I want to share this knowledge because so many people experience starting your own business as a black box. They have no history, no networks, at least they think they don't, and they're just sort of at a loss. And so I did, like you, started my own course. It is a starting your own business workshop. I actually have one this weekend. It's a 2-part series. And in that workshop, exactly to Cindy's point, in part 1, we help you figure out who you are in your business, why you want to start, the challenges, the supports that you already have, the insecurities. Let's get that stuff out the way so that we can help you work on your business plan. And that's basically what Cindy is talking about, the nuts and bolts of building whatever business it is or business idea that you have. And then I also, like Cindy said, I also provide a lot of free resources because as Cindy experienced, it's so many resources that are out there that are free, available, and accessible. We just don't know because it's just not in our lane to think about starting a business, or you just kind of just think like you don't have the tools. But me, just like Cindy, just like every other small business owner that I have come in contact, is more than willing to share and mentor and bring people along. Because my thing, like so much like Cindy, I started my business and I was like, wow, I'm making some good money here. I'm experiencing freedom. I'm enjoying myself. I'm building, I'm reaching all of the things that I want. And I'm like, let's bring some other people on, let other people experience this too. So again, Cindy, thank you so much for spending your time with me today and sharing your story. And I do want to remind everyone that please follow Work for Change. Work for Change LLC is my workplace consultancy, which supports this podcast. You can find us on YouTube, of course. What is it? LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We're on the streaming channels to find us on podcasts. So please like, subscribe, and share as we work to make the world of work better. Have a great day, everyone.